This is my project on the Great Depression New Deal. First, we're going to start off with is what caused the Great Depression. The nation's total wealth more than doubled between 1920 and 1929. The stock market centered at the New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street in New York City. New York City was the scene of reckless speculation, where everyone from millionaire tycoons to cooks and janitors poured their savings into stocks. As a result, the stock market underwent rapid expansion, reaching its peak in August 1929. By then, production had already declined and unemployment had risen, leaving stock prices much higher than their actual value. Additionally, wages at that time were low. Consumer debt was declining. The economy was struggling due to drought and falling food prices, and banks had an excess of large loans that could not be liquidated. The American economy entered a mild recession during the summer of 1929. Then, as consumer spending slowed and unsold goods began to pile up, which in turn slowed factory production, nonetheless, stock prices continued to rise, and by the fall of that year had reached stratospheric levels that could not be justified by future. 1929, as nervous investors began selling overpriced shares en masse, the stock market crash that some had feared happened at last. A record 12.9 million shares were traded that day, known as Black Thursday. 5 days later, on October 29th, or Black Thursday, some 16 million shares were traded after another wave of panic swept Wall Street. Millions of shares ended up worthless, and those investors who had bought stocks on margin with borrowed money were wiped out completely. As consumer confidence vanished in the wake of the stock market crash, the downturn in spending and investments led factories and other businesses to slow down production and began firing their workers for those who were lucky enough to remain employed. Wages fell and buying power decreased. Many Americans forced to buy on credit fell into debt, and the number of foreclosures and repossessions climbed steadily. After showing early signs of recovery beginning in the spring of 1933, the economy continued to improve throughout the next 3 years, during which real GDP, adjusted for inflation, grew at an average rate of 9% per year. A sharp recession hit in 1937, causing in part by the Federal Reserve's decision to increase its requirements for money in reserve. Though the economy began improving again in 1938, this second severe contraction reversed many of the gains in production and employment and prolonged the effects of the Great Depression throughout the end of the decade. With Roosevelt's decision to support Britain and France in the struggle against Germany and the other Axis powers, defense manufacturing geared up, producing more and more private sector jobs. The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor in December 1941 led to America's entry into World War II, and the nation's factories went back into full production mode. This expanding industrial production, as well as widespread conscription beginning in 1942, reduced the unemployment rate to below its pre-Depression level. The Great Depression had ended at last, and the United States turned its attention to the global conflict of World War II. Among the programs and institutions of the New Deal that aided in recovery from the Great Depression was the Tennessee Valley Authority, which built dams and hydroelectric projects to control flooding and provide electric power to the impoverished Tennessee Valley region, and the Works Progress Administration, which is the WPA, a permanent jobs program that employed 8.5 million people from 1935 to 1943. That is my project.